NBA building blocks, dude. So your favorite DFS plays at the following positions for tonight's 6-game NBA slate. Who will you build around at center, Garion?
I'm going to go with DeAndre Ayton at $8,200. This Lakers roster is just completely decimated by health and safety protocols and injury right now. Really, the only true big they have left is the husk of DeAndre Jordan, who had to play over 20 minutes in their loss to Chicago on Sunday. I just don't see that being a recipe for success against DeAndre Ayton, who was actually able to put up a 15-point, 15-rebound double-double in under 24 minutes against the Hornets this past weekend. 3 straight double-doubles for Ayton. He's averaging almost 1.2 DraftKings points per minute for the season as a whole. He should just absolutely dominate the interior of this Lakers defense. So I like his price point just above $8,000.
All right, Matt, you agree?
Yeah, the Lakers defense is missing their 2 best defensive players. Like Garion said, it's Anthony Davis and Dwight Howard also not there. And I'm not even sure that DeAndre Jordan even sticks in the game much at center. They didn't play him really much at all in the second half of last game. So they may be running a lineup where it's like LeBron or Carmelo or Trevor Ariza playing center. It's a really good matchup. But aside from Ayton, I do want to point out that Damian Lillard is questionable tonight. And if he doesn't play, that just makes everyone look better on Portland. So I'm going to keep coming back to this as we go through the different positions. But Yusuf Nurkic, even though he's not even close to the same position that Lillard is just going to have a lot more to do in terms of ball handling responsibility if you don't have Dame there. So Nurkic could be a really good play if we don't have Lillard playing tonight.
Okay, Ryan, who are you going to build around at center?
Yeah, I love the thought of picking on the Lakers. That gets me really excited. I'll go different here, though. I'll go Jonas Valanciunas at 8,300 versus Portland, who does not care about getting any stops any night. The Pelicans are off a canceled game, so they're plenty rested. Lately, he's been playing in the mid-upper 30s in minutes, and last game he played 40 minutes. And his ceiling is just so high for me to pass up. He had 70.8 DraftKings points one night this season. I just loved rostering Jonas Valanciunas, and I love this matchup.
Matt, a forward worth building your lineup around is who and why?
So I'll mention 2 because there are 2 injury situations to monitor. I mentioned Lillard possibly being out, so that would make Norman Powell also probably the primary scorer and ball-dominant player for Portland. And then we have the same situation for Kristaps Porzingis in Dallas. We don't know if he's playing or not either. So 6,100 for Tim Hardaway Jr. normally is just way too much, but Luka Doncic is already out. Porzingis could be out. Maxi Kleber is, I think, already out also. So Hardaway could just end up needing to play more minutes because the team is shorthanded, and certainly would need more shooting responsibility if you take KP off the floor. So Powell or Hardaway, and potentially both. I think those situations could end up looking really strong later in the day.
All right, Ryan.
Yeah, I want to keep an eye on the Knicks because Evan Fournier is on an absolute heater. He's playing like he's in France again, like he knows how to play basketball. 5,100 versus Detroit. 28 and 43 minutes in his last 2 games, 29 fantasy points, and 48.8 fantasy points in his last game. Fournier is looking really good. And by default, there's no Rose, there's no Obi Toppin, there's no RJ Barrett. They're going to have somebody score the ball. It's been Evan Fournier the past 2 nights.
And Gare Bear, forward, you're going to build around.
Yeah, well, these guys did a pretty good job of just picking clean the mid-tier. So I guess I'll talk about a top-end guy. Brandon Ingram, expensive. He's $8,900. But Ryan already mentioned the matchup against Portland. Just a terrible defense. I do think it's worth noting, if Lillard doesn't play, suddenly you do get into a scenario where I didn't think I'd be saying this sentence at all this season, but the Pelicans might be in, like, blowout territory where you would worry about game script concerns with someone like Ingram. But right now, as has been the case with Valanciunas, they are just giving Ingram every single minute he can handle. In 8 starts in December, he's averaging almost 38 minutes per game, and that's led to 27, 6, and 6 with, you know, a pretty good true shooting percentage as well at 588. So Ingram's just been playing really well, 50-plus DraftKings points in 4 of his last 8 games. Again, I would keep an eye on the Lillard thing, but if Lillard's in there, I think this game is competitive enough where Ingram's just going to be on the court for maybe 40 minutes.
Ryan, which guard has building block potential?
So if Dame's in, I like Dame. 9,800, which is expensive, but I was a little worried about his injury. But the last 5 games, he seems to be fine. There's a 52 fantasy point day sprinkled in there, a 63 sprinkled in there. And I like just this matchup. The Pelicans themselves don't care about defense, 24th in the league in defensive rating. Just both teams are run and gun and don't really like to play defense. A lot of their emphasis is on offense. So whether it's Dame, Ingram, Valanciunas, Nurkic, pay attention to the injuries, but you can't really go wrong with rostering anybody from this game.
All right, Garion.
Well, Matt already mentioned Tim Hardaway Jr. The other guy in that backcourt is obviously Jalen Brunson, who's $7,400. I just think that's a pretty fair price for Brunson, especially if Porzingis doesn't end up playing. This is a team that was already essentially running like an 8.5-man rotation with Porzingis in there. So if he's not playing tonight, Brunson, who's played about 38 minutes a game his last 2, could also be looking at maybe even increasing that already crazy number, which is kind of just the case around the league right now with some of these shortened rotations. But so far this season, with Luka not playing and Brunson starting, he's averaging 39 DraftKings points per game. So he is among the safer assets, I would say, already on this slate. And then if Porzingis doesn't play, that only increases his ceiling.
All right, Matty.
Yeah, I like both those calls. If Lillard does play, could be a little lower owned. Brunson, I think even if you have Porzingis out there, is still a little bit too cheap. And then I like Anthony Simons if Lillard's out. And then just a quick thing, we already just got news rolling in that Dwight Howard and Talen Horton-Tucker have cleared protocols, so we're going to have to maybe walk back our DeAndre Ayton calls. Yeah, I still like him, but whatever. Just another reminder that we have to look out for news all day long because things keep changing in today's NBA. But the guy I am targeting the most here is Simons if we do get Lillard out of the lineup.
Well, Matt, who would you target if you were considering building around a value play?
Yeah, I think someone on Minnesota has to do well. So Jalen Noel is going to be pretty popular, I think, for $3,300. You have Patrick Beverley out. You have Jared Vanderbilt out. I think Jaden McDaniels, Naz Reid, like all of these guys are stepping into larger roles. So I don't know that I necessarily want to just pick one of them, but for just like overall value play, I'm going to say that someone who's cheap on the Timberwolves probably needs to do well. I think those are the main 3. So that's the place I'm looking to find a value play.
Gary, and what about you, dude?
Yeah, Jaden McDaniels is probably the name I had circled. Malik Beasley might be the safest of those guys. He hasn't shot well with in the starting lineup for Anthony Edwards as of late, but you have to figure his shot normalizes a little bit over the course of time. I would also just say, gotta mention Max Struss, I guess. This guy, 28 points per game, 6 3-pointers made his last 2 starts. And that was with P.J. Tucker playing. And P.J. Tucker is now not in this game, along with Jimmy Butler and Caleb Martin and all of the front court guys missing for the Heat. Obviously, for that scenario, you have to watch whether or not Tyler Hero is going to make his return. He's been questionable for what feels like 17 consecutive weeks. But if he's in there tonight, that would ruin Max's value a little bit. But $4,700, I'm still willing to go back to the well with this guy if he's under 5K.
Ryan, hook me up with a value play.
Yeah, it's early, but the boys nailed it. I circled 7 times Jaden McDaniels. He played 32 minutes last game with Jared Vanderbilt in. There's no Ant, there's no Patrick Beverley, there's no Prince, there's no Okogie. The T-Wolves need bodies. Jaden McDaniels looks good.
Garion, let's wrap this thing up by switching over to the DK Sportsbook, buddy. Just, let's see, 6 games on the slate, right? So give me your favorite bet.
So I had DeAndre Ayton over 11.5 rebounds written down at -110. I will say I probably am like 10% less confident in this now that Dwight Howard's playing, but I'm still willing to take this one to the bank. I think DeAndre Ayton is just one of the elite rebounders in the game. I was also going to point out that they have a prop special for this contest. Ayton 20-plus points, 14-plus rebounds is +600. That's not a terrible sprinkle in my opinion.
All right, Ryan, favorite bet tonight?
Yeah, I'm obsessing over these T-Wolves. Jaden McDaniels, over 9.5 points. Last game, he played 32 minutes, as I mentioned, with Jared Vanderbilt in, playing 38. Now Vanderbilt's out, and Jaden only has to get 9.5 when he had 12 last game. I love that.
And then, Matt, bring us home.
So I'll give one last contingent pick here. If Lillard doesn't play, I think the natural inclination is to say, okay, let's bet the Pelicans. But as much as Lillard matters to the point spread, I think he matters significantly more, like 2 or 3x more to the total, because Lillard is not a great defensive player. He's a tremendous offensive player. And then he also drives the pace in a way that the team can't really do without CJ McCollum, especially. Like Blazers games just slow down so much when you take Dame off the floor. So this total's already down from 219 to 218. If Lillard doesn't play, I think we see it drop to like 212, if not lower. So if you have a hunch that Lillard's not going to play, I'm not sure which way that news is going to break. Or maybe you just want to try to wait it out and then make the bet, as the news is breaking. This total will plummet if Lillard doesn't play. So I really like the under there.